Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Couch Confidentials. Today, I'm taking another tangent out of the Martech realm just to share my world. This person who's sitting here with me, Simo Ahava, straight from Finland, has played a big role in my career in understanding the technical side of collecting data, especially from websites, through platforms like Google Tag Manager. So, Simo, super welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time to have a chat with me.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk about things that are fun to talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have to say, I think it was around, I started out with digital analytics, and at some point I kept on running into poor setups. And that was absolutely the moment I said, things have to change. So I got into the technical side. And I'll admit, I don't have this little pedestal or photo of you here. I do have the dog though, but I don't have a little photo of you. But in a different world, maybe, because I have to say you were one of the the key people in the Google Tag Manager community and tag management in general to be active on the internet, to share your experiences, share a lot of script examples. How did you end up in that? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the the ambassador role for the world for Google Tag Manager?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but I guess that originally, I've been geeking out with websites and web design since I was a teenager. So mid 90s, late 90s. And back then it was pre JavaScript analytics days. So we had those stat counters, and I managed to create a couple of websites that actually, got quite a bit of traction. And it was just so infatuating watching that counter go up and click it and see where the visitors were coming from, like what their IP address is resolved to. So that's how I kind of got into the measurement side of things. It was just a vanity thing, seeing how many people visit websites. But just working on the web just followed me throughout. I took my studies and my master's in a completely unrelated topic, so I had to keep myself active somehow. So just building websites and working with that. And then by the time GA became free availability in 2006 or thereabouts, I was among the first to jump in just because I wanted an upgrade from those stat counters, and I didn't have a budget, so I couldn't start using Adobe or Omniture or any of the other complicated tools. And GA just kind of swept me away. And then in 2010 or thereabouts, I stopped with my studies and entered digital marketing and just technology sector. Entered IT basically, and that's when I figured out that I could actually start turning my hobby, or my kind of this fun little hobby that I had, into something that I can actually work with. And then, so I started working with implementations of Google Analytics, classic Google Analytics back then, or although it wasn't called classic, of course, it was just Google Analytics. And then I ran into what you said, like implementations suck. That was just a common thing. And Google also realized that so many Google Analytics deployments that they see have typos, they have mistakes, they have errors, they're collecting bad data. And of course, it reflects badly on Google, because people blame the platform and not their implementation. And so in 2012, late 2012, October 2012, when Google Tag Manager was released to public, it had been in a beta for a while, and I was testing it because I worked at a company that had access to the beta. I kind of just saw the incredible utility there, because for anybody working in marketing, already back then, of course, one of the most difficult things to do was to get changes to your snippets and to your pixels. So just trying to get the developers to understand, like, what are we doing? Why do you need this? And so Google Tag Manager, I quickly realized this was not a good way to do Google Tag Manager. But back then, the cool thing was that you could actually get stuff done without having to go through the IT process. And so that's how that's long story short, how I got into Google. But the blogging thing just came organically. I've been blogging the entire time I've been working with web, starting in the 90s, starting in bulletin board systems, actually, and blogging in those. And it just came so naturally. figured out a cool solution, and I just wrote about it and published it. And that was the time of Google Plus. So we had a very active Google Tag Manager community there and Google Analytics community there. And so I started sharing those blogs there, and then they just took off. And then it became more like a. I think I was among the first people to focus solely on that interface between development and marketing, so technical marketing, as I call it now. So Google Tag Manager blogs didn't really exist. There were people who blogged about Google Tag Manager, among other things. But I decided early on that would be my entire focus. And I think it then just this very strict focus and the fact that I was every week coming up with new cool ideas to blog about really helped, take it off. And I think that I'm still here, so obviously it had
You're
some
still there. I mean,
impact.
I don't blog like as well.
Yeah, I blog like 10% of what I used to blog, but every now and then I still have a nice idea to write about, and then I do. Of course, now I have a couple of other blogs as well to curate, but yeah, that's how. Let me just finish by saying that none of this was intentional. Like, this was always a hobby. It was always fun. And I was very, very surprised when I started getting invitations to events and Google started giving me attention and people started asking me questions. I was very, very surprised at that. And there was no method to it. There still isn't. Like, I don't have a set schedule. I don't have any goal for blogging. I've decided that as soon as it feels like a chore, I'll stop doing it. And I've really slowed down over the last couple of years just because it started feeling like a chore. So it was good timing. I think that's how I would.
I think so too. And I mean, I think it's a healthy curiosity what you showed. And it's interesting to say that you kind of got into this valley between technical and marketing, and you opened up a whole new, I think in a certain sense, you at least contributed to a whole new career path for many, because a lot of people weren't actually considering sitting in the middle. And I still experience that to this day is, especially when we talk about customer data platforms or even digital, where does it sit? Does it sit with marketing or does it sit with the technical side? And I remember the early days of Google Tag Manager. I was working with a tool called Tagman at the time, but the same premise was there. You get one JavaScript container onto a website, give it a UI where you can inject other scripts in and do magical stuff with it. It was definitely an eye opener, and I think some of the Wild Western days. I remember just. Yeah, like you said, it was dangerous on one end. I actually, this was before I actually knew JavaScript. I wasn't clear on what an alert was, so I started testing with I believe Tag Commander at the time. This client was using Tag Commander, and I wanted to see if I could scrape product data from the website, put it into an object, and then send it off. But I was testing with an alert instead of console log, and I'd accidentally published it, so it was live for about an hour. It's these kind of things. It's so much power to put into a tag manager. Have you? I mean, I'll get back to the community part because I think that's really what defines you. But governance, does that play a huge role for tag management? We have taggers, we have Stape, and a lot of their messaging is around, hey, use our adjusted version of the tag and you can bypass things. Where does that responsibility, in your opinion, sit in terms of managing a tool as powerful as a tag management solution?
Well, yeah, governance is everything. And like you, I quickly noticed that this can be a very dangerous tool in the wrong hands, which was actually incentive for me to continue blogging, trying to kind of introduce those best practices. But yeah, so tag management systems have always had this weird dichotomy to them that they facilitate technical marketing. They let you do things that would otherwise be difficult. But at the same time, those things are typically difficult for a reason. Like there are reasons why IT won't just on a whim really publish what you ask them to. Like there are reasons for that. They have processes. They have certain build processes in place that they need to evaluate, and they know IT knows that if something goes wrong, if there's a data security breach or a data protection breach, they are the ones. I mean, like in the first line of getting the blame. So of course they are skeptical about stuff like that. And then Google Tag Manager comes along, and it's really like a backdoor to implementing all this
a little
stuff.
Trojan horse.
Yeah. So I quickly, at least I tried to pivot away from, everybody just use Google Tag Manager because it's so cool, to let's try and make Google Tag Manager the tool that unites your organization, that brings the developers and the marketers together, because developers can actually appreciate what Google Tag Manager does, because it offers a standardized way of deploying tracking and tagging. But it's the same thing that I'm having with server-side tagging now, where server-side tagging seems like an amazing way to bypass all sorts of stuff. And the companies that you mentioned do advertise this as their USP. And from the beginning, I've been trying to push this narrative that it's not about bypassing, it's about taking control. And bypassing is actually bypassing user agency, bypassing ad blockers, bypassing tracking protections. It's, again, we're back in square one with the governance problem, where these tools might look like they were built specifically for that purpose, for bypassing stuff, but they don't have to be used for that. And in fact, if you do use them for bypassing or for taking over IT processes, you are building a reputation for those tools that will make it all the more difficult to deploy in an organization that actually cares about these things. So it's a very difficult message to push, especially because I've become known for being such a strong proponent of tag management. And then it seems like sometimes I'm the only person shouting into the wind saying that, okay, tag management is cool, but you have to use it responsibly. It has all these cool ways you can use it, but some of them are almost strictly black hat. And I'm very disappointed often in our communities for spending so much time trying to come up with workarounds and ways to override user agency and ways to just get more data, as if just having more data is somehow a grail thing. It's because it's inconsequential if you get 3% more data. What do you do with that? Like, who cares?
Yeah,
such a weird industry.
No, it is. I remember the when GDPR went live, we had to make changes to Google Tag Manager to make sure it was fully behind the cookie wall. And then I think it was 2 days later, the marketers, they saw the drop in performance. GDPR at work. We were respecting people's consent. And it went up the chain of command. They said, well, we need to revert back as it was before GDPR. And I was like, well, that kind of defends, that kind of beats the purpose of this whole entire GDPR thing. So people felt threatened in the work that they were doing, since they were being, assessed on their performance. And if their ad performance dropped, so did their performance. And I mean, even I read today, Shane was fined $150 million for placing cookies that they shouldn't have. And there's in the US, there's a rise of scalping lawyer agencies, or at least lawyers that just all they do is scan websites to make sure, hey, are you adhering to the laws? And it's a difficult position to be in, as you say. If you if you have a rational mind, you shouldn't be doing it, and it's always a tough discussion that you probably have with clients as well. Is it? I mean, you mentioned the community there. The community has definitely been a driving force for you and for Tagman. If you look at Tagman, or if you look at the products that Adobe was serving up, it's sure they have communities, but nothing as big as Google. How have you, like you said, you've been invited to speak with Google, and I think at one point you were even you were advising them, or you were on a special program with to be pushing Google Tag Manager.
Yeah, the developer expert program. Yeah.
Oh, that was it. Yeah. What did that exactly entail? And is it? I mean, I personally haven't been following most of the changes within Google Tag Manager, but it seems to be kind of slightly dormant.
Yeah. So the community, first of all, has always been impressive. Like I said, there was already a big existing community around measurement in Google+, in Twitter. And of course, all over the place before those technologies or those services. And so I did enter a place that was already well established. And the cool thing about the community, at least like until the demise of Universal Analytics, was that it was all about intervention. and people were just sharing cool ideas that they had. It was all about building, and people were really encouraging each other. Google was very active in those communities. They were positioning themselves as open to feedback, and you could even see, was quite electrifying, because we might have a discussion in Google Plus around it would be cool to see this feature in Google Tag Manager. In the next release, we suddenly see that it's there because they were listening in the forums. So it was almost an immediate feedback loop. As you said, I'm sure all the other platforms had their own forums, and of course the discussions we had were universal. So we could have a very fluent discussion with Adobe practitioners about tagging and tracking as well. Always did. Yeah. But Google was dominant because it was free, quote unquote free. So that was the community was certainly very cool. It's such a shame that we don't have that anymore. Google has all but removed themselves from community interactions, especially since they killed off the evangelist team of Daniel Weisberg and Chris Seiden and Adam Singer and Louis Gray and all the others. That was such a wonderful way of them interjecting themselves into communities, but they don't have that anymore. So I think that, and that now we have Measure Slack, which I think is the still like the biggest gathering. There's over 20,000 of us now. A free to join, yeah,
and it's a free Slack even. So I mean, you've got 20,000 people talking to each other on a free Slack account. I mean, I don't even think it's paid. I don't even want to know what the bill for that is. Salesforce could be. Could add another zero behind their revenue just off the Measure Slack alone. But you can still play an active role in that.
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's premium Slack, but we don't pay anything for it. It was sponsored to us. Yeah, it is premium, and it was sponsored to us by Slack themselves. So because it was such I think it was because it was such an active community and such a big, it's of course a great promotion for Slack. 20,000 people using their tool and seeing how good it is. I am very active. And also a moderator there, and it's like we said, it's free, and we can add to the show notes how to apply to join. But it is right now like the de facto. And the cool thing about Measure Slack is that it kind of brings people together from all different things. It's not just about Google. Yeah. There's Adobe. There's Piwik.
Vendor agnostic.
Yeah, it's completely vendor agnostic, and such a lovely space to be in. So that's now, I think, where the discussion mostly is. Of course, LinkedIn gets its fair share, but LinkedIn is just such a it's such a terrible place. It's such bad energy most of the time, AI generated slop. But unfortunately, it seems to be the only existing marketing channel from a social media point of view that makes sense.
With something new at one point.
I think so too. Yeah, and now I of course forgot already what your question was, but when I swept down the menu,
just around the community. But you did touch about the AI slop, and I'd like to go into that because that was one of the original reasons I reached out to you, because I think you posted or you replied to an article around that AI will not take people's job. There's a lot of fear. In that lower level developers will lose their job to AI, et cetera. But at some point, you're going to get this gap. If you ignore all the junior developers now, once the generation moves up, you're going to get a huge gap in expertise. I haven't really been following AI within analytics and tag management. I think the only solution that I've found so far was Piwik Pro, in that you can actually, I think they demoed it. I don't think it's live yet. But what they told me at one of their get-togethers was you'll be able to put in a URL for your website. It'll scan it, and it'll kind of determine what the best way it would be to tag it. Are there any other kind of new features that you've been hearing about or seeing in terms of AI? And then we'll get back to the question about the importance of humans in that in that sum.
Well, there's a bunch. I mean, Google Analytics released an official MCP server not so long ago, which lets you kind of do agentic stuff with Google Analytics data. So you could do, run AI agents through Google Analytics APIs. The quality is iffy, but of course it will get better. Yeah. Stape released an MCP server for Google Tag Manager, which would technically let you run the programmatic API for Google Tag Manager using chatbots and agent prompts. So, I think I'm definitely not in the deep end with AI. There are people far more well read than me able to talk about that. But my feeling from being active in the communities is that there are certain things that LLMs and generative AI is very good at when it comes to technical marketing and digital marketing. For example, writing documentation, building structured data constructs such as Google Tag Manager containers. It's well documented. It's structured JSON. There's no problem in doing that. Doing diagnostics, trying to giving you ideas how to improve an existing setup. There are things it's not very good at, but it tries to do a good job. For example, scanning a website for patterns, offering tagging ideas, so idea generation around digital marketing. It's not always good, simply because the whole idea of measurement, tracking, and tagging is so tied to what the website historically has been doing, what its market is. You can't just generalize these things, but you can get a nice bullet point list of ideas. And then there are things that I think where it's severely lacking, which is, for example, if you try to delegate actual analysis to an AI, just dropping it some numbers and telling it to generate insights, it's just not very impressive. And just this idea of delegating marketing processes to a machine sounds like the best thing the machine can do is just be average, when you would in marketing certainly try to look for those breakthroughs as well. So I haven't been very impressed. I think there's a lot of things it can do, especially around those menial development tasks like documentation generation, project organization, structuring, building those method signatures for API connections, for example. It's very good at that. And I use it liberally for those kinds of things. But I have been quite disillusioned with its ability to actually generate application code. I've been doing this quote unquote vibe coding a bit. And I find that as soon as I get past the first couple of releases, I just have to jump in and start coding myself, because then it starts making like mistakes. So I'm not an agnostic, but I'm certainly not in a hype train. And I think that the more time passes, the less impressed I am with the iterations, and it almost feels like generative AI is plateauing already. And we've kind of seen its limitations, but I'm a very bad futurologist in this sense. So I'm sure that somebody will prove me wrong quickly.
Well, you're called Simo, not Nostradamus. I mean,
exactly.
If it was Nostradamus, I'd be asking you for stock advice too. But no, I hear what you're saying. I mean, vibe coding. I've tried two applications now. One to generate synthetic data to push to endpoints like Google Analytics through measurement protocol. And like you said, you can get very far, but it feels like you've got the finish line in sight, and then at that point it just stops. It doesn't want to take you further. And after I'd finished one application, I said, "Okay, let's do a security scan now." And we had API keys exposed there. We had, I mean, there's so many things it just doesn't take into account, which can. Take you over or create such a risk for you that it can definitely endanger your business. So one of the things you mentioned was the kind of the MCP for Google Tag Manager. I can even imagine there. I mean, to what degree can you actually push that the trust in the MCP to? I think it would make changes or configurations or maybe add tags, etc. To what degree can you really trust what it's outputting? And I think that's what really scares me. So your argument is still humans in the loop or humans in the lead kind of thing. I think those are I think human in the loop is one of the big terms you hear, but yeah.
Well, that's how I would approach it. And I would personally not delegate any processes strictly to AI. I would always have a human in the loop, but that's my own approach. And I'm very careful not to change it without good reason. And it's just, I just haven't been that impressed. But it's also because maybe I have higher expectations when it comes to Google Tag Manager. I really do expect that there are just so many little catch-alls and so many like catch-22s and so many little gotchas there that the AI just doesn't navigate around, and it tends to generate quite lazy outputs. And then we have this funny phenomenon where just another example of how AI is messing up with community. You have people on the other hand coming to Measure Slack or LinkedIn and saying, I asked ChatGPT for some JavaScript code for, could somebody please look through it to see if it's okay? So why would you do that? Like, why would you
Oh
go
my
to
God.
ChatGPT in the first place if you then need to go back to the community and ask for help? Why not just ask
Oh my
directly from the
goodness.
community when you'll get like verified experts saying this is exactly how it should go? So I think with
Yeah.
ChatGPT or any of those other tools, the problem is verifiability. You don't. It's generated from a corpus. It's not generated by somebody who knows their stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a stark difference there. And then the other other example is just when I audit a new container, for example, I can directly see which bits of code were generated by Gen AI, and not always in a positive sense. So that's another thing. Like it leaves a certain signature. And do you really want to leave such a breadcrumb trail behind you that you used AI to generate these things? Because first of all, there's a risk that it's wrong, and second, you are just basically making yourself redundant because the customer themselves could just have used the AI for the same thing. So it's just
exactly.
I guess there's like a Venn diagram of what AI should do and what a human should do, and the overlap is just becoming bigger and bigger for the human side to overtake the AI side. But we are strictly talking about technical marketing, tagging and tracking, which I think is just a realm that has so many offshoots in regulation and compliance, client side performance, things that you just don't want to mess with. But then there are other realms where AI could have a much bigger role. This junior developer thing, for example, I think there are definitely many people working in digital organizations who should rightly feel at risk, not because AI is taking over their roles, but because they are allowing the AI to take over their roles. They are working on such things that you shouldn't really be spending time on anyway. Like, setting up projects or refactoring code or writing documentation. Like, it makes no sense to spend time on those things. You should focus on the bigger level stuff, the higher compliance, the higher complexity stuff, and use AI to take that workload away from you. So rather than feeling threatened, think of it as somebody who's actually allowing you to focus on all the right things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's now that you kind of point that out, I guess in a sense. So the way I use AI is. And I try to be very open about this. I feel like my brain is always on. I'm having like 20 different discussions at the same time. Oh, this is an interesting topic. Oh, I need to remember to tell my wife that, or I need to make sure that the dog gets the medicine. And I feel that AI, in a sense, is helping me structure all that information in a better way that I can, as you might notice, while I'm discussing here, I'm thinking while I'm talking. So the words that come out is, they seem to go all over the place as well.
Yeah. The train is already on the next station.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point. I like that one. Train's already at the next station. But what AI helps me does is really sit down and focus. So what I use a tool, I think it's called Super Whisper or Whisper. I don't know what it's called, but I just talk to the computer. Yeah. What's it called? Was it? No, it's some pretty cool tool, but it's based on Whisper from OpenAI, and I just talk to it, and then it will just structure my thoughts for me. And I have to say that is helping me to focus while I'm talking. It'll split out different topics and say, "Hey, you were talking about this. You were talking about," and it's there are good applications. One thing
it's a good PA.
Noticing though is that it is, yeah. And even if you use tools for Akiflow, I use that, and I can actually talk to it now. Say, hey, I need some time for a meeting on Thursday. Well, what's my availability? And it'll do that. I don't know about you, but the best thoughts I always have is when I'm not behind the computer. I'm in the car, I'm walking, and I need to talk to someone. So I just put the voice to text, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. So Google Analytics. I recently heard that Google Analytics, they don't want to call it Google Analytics 4 anymore. They just say this is just GA. And like I previously mentioned, Google Tag Manager, it feels like it's kind of dormant. A few months ago, or maybe a year ago, there were some discussions like with people from, I don't know, I think it was Rick Dronkers, who was maybe pushing a narrative or suggesting a narrative that Google Cloud in combination with Google Tag Manager was pushing towards a customer data platform. I just want to see if I can pick your brain about, have you heard anything on the grapevine that kind of verifies what Google's trying to achieve now with Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics? Like, the demo team's gone, or what's happening in the space?
That's a good question. I don't really know. So Google Tag Manager, it hasn't been dormant. Like, they push releases in server-side GTM quite frequently, actually. What we've been missing for a long time, are those small incremental updates. It doesn't feel like Google Tag Manager has been getting any new features, really, other than related to Google Tag, which is a bit of a shame. Like, there's a long list of things that I would like to see in Google Tag Manager, and I just don't feel like they're coming there anytime soon. And then there are bugs that are almost 10 years old now that haven't been fixed, but that's kind of understandable, because Google Tag has overtaken the Google's marketing organizations, like the only thing they are focused on right now. Kind of understandable. They want to consolidate the technologies. Google Analytics certainly gets a lot of love. It's improved. Those that have been following me know that I'm being very, very critical of Google Analytics over the past years. I still get a icky feeling when I open the UI. I operate almost totally in BigQuery and Dataform now. But as far as CDP goes, I don't think that Google itself is pushing forward with any related technology. But what they are certainly doing is opening up the APIs and opening up the connectors and improving the connectors to make like community-driven CDPs around Google's tagging technologies a reality. So server-side GTM itself can be used as both an ingestion and a throughput system for channeling data from CRMs, from transactional databases. It can certainly be used for that already in a very, very CDP type of way. Google Analytics itself is building integrations directly with third-party platforms that might allow them to better.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly, and there's going to be others as well, I'm sure, that will make it easier to do like audience transfers from one place to the other. I think the deeply embedded skepticism of kind of relinquishing your customer data to Google is what's holding them back. And I think there's a lot of like regulatory problems down the line in case they would start hoarding customer data themselves, which they of course do already with all those identifiers, but turning into a CDP, for example, I don't think that's in the horizon. I think what they'll prefer doing is to become a key component in a customer's CDP. So that would be certainly something that they're probably facing. But that's also one of the reasons I haven't been blogging that much, is because there just haven't been cool updates that invite me to get the kind of, wow, I can't wait to tinker around with this. So it's just it's a bit stagnant.
The fact that you've actually been teaching
that as well, and
to producing courses.
Yeah, that as well.
This is definitely not a plug. I'm not advertising here. I think I did three courses with you. What I think it feels like a natural progression from your blogs to go into building these courses over at simmer.net. You recently released a whole new bunch, or at least updated courses, at least for the BigQuery course, I believe. Yep. With Johan van der Werken.
Well, it was kind of natural. I have been doing trainings both online and in person through companies like 121 Watt in Germany, and of course training my clients. And I guess at some point, this was COVID times when companies were. This was literally the first COVID year when companies were stopping in-person trainings and live trainings and wanted to move online. And my wife was stuck in a kind of a dead-end job, and I was kind of getting very bored with consultation, or just, the kind of consultation that I was doing. And so we thought that let's just, I've been doing online courses for CXL as well. So I know how to perform in front of a camera and how to build those materials. And we just thought with my wife that, hey, let's just do a quick proof of concept and see if people are interested. And server-side tagging was just released, so it seemed like a good first course. And then we published the course and it took off. And then we just decided, okay, this looks like a good. So it was, again, a very good timing. Same with the blog. It was very good timing because we released the course with a technology that had been previously unvisited. Nobody had been doing anything with it because it was just released. And that companies were slowly moving to, or quite fast actually moving to online trainings. So again, it was very, very lucky timing. And it's been a lot of fun. It's hard work trying to come up with courses that people are actually looking for, but server-side tagging and the BigQuery stuff and the JavaScript have certainly been a kind of evergreen topics that I think many people are looking for. So that's all happening on teamsimmer.com, where we also, like, the big push a couple of years ago was that we released this free kind of course for technical marketers called the Technical Marketing Handbook, which started again as something that, hey, we've got this extra capital floating around. What should we do with it? Well, let's take time away from actually generating more capital and let's invest it into building a resource. So it's handbook.teamsimmer.com, which it's like an online manual for technical marketing. It goes through all the different disciplines. So if you're like entering digital marketing for the first time, or if you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of the different technologies, it's a good place to start. But that was just a very fun experience, and I'm very, very proud of it. Even though it's not directly generating anything for us, we don't push anything through it. We don't force you to subscribe or to.
I think that's worth something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how do you feel what kind of people are using this? So I work sometimes with startups, and I feel that a lot of this technical experience is missing. Do you see that back in the data that you're collecting from the people who sign up for your courses? And I mean, what kind of topics are the highest in demand if you maybe look at the course topics that are in there?
So. First of all, we don't actually do analytics at Simmer. We collect some data, but we rarely use it because that was also an experiment. Can we build a successful brand without actually doing anything with data? And we did manage to do that. And we didn't even do any advertising. Only very recently
That's like a chicken egg story in marketing. Can you market without the data, or can that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, so we tried to be. And it was so based on personal brand and our newsletter. And we did an experiment with Google Ads actually just this summer, and it just didn't work out. Like we're too niche for, and we've chosen some very unfortunately popular topics like learning BigQuery, and even our brand name Simmer is a popular like DoorDash kind of food delivery service in the US, I think. So it's so we haven't made things easy for us, but I also so we don't look at data that much. But what I can say, like generally, is that almost all of our buyers are companies or business to business. Partly because the VAT rules in EU, because VAT is added to if a individual buys a digital service, then their VAT is added, whereas companies get a reverse charge. So it's actually cheaper for companies to buy those courses.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's complicated, but actually find it fascinating. The majority of our buyers is from the US. And there's certainly, like, when I look through the names of companies that people have, it's big digital marketing companies that want to educate their students. But in terms of like, and then of course we know what's most popular, where the BigQuery courses are our most popular courses. Server-side tagging is a close second, and then the rest come after. And based on how much people ask questions, those are the things that are the hottest topics. But they're also kind of frustrating to do courses around because they are third-party user interfaces. So anytime Google makes changes to them, we have to be very careful to see if our content becomes outdated. And it happens maybe once a year that we have to go back and redo a lot of videos, which is time away from anything else. So that's why I actually preferred, for example, our JavaScript course and our CSS selector course and our DevTools courses are really fun because they're almost evergreen material. Like, those interfaces can change, but the fundamentals stay the same. So hopefully in the future, we could focus more on evergreen content. Simply because it's still a 2-person company. It's just me and my wife. So we don't have the luxury of every day, working on 10 different courses and having like a full pipeline. So it's out of necessity.
No, I know there was this, there were two German guys. They were doing programming courses for JavaScript, and they did a Vue and a React, and they were quite thorough. And they saw all their stuff on Udemy. But the thing I question, and this is just for me personally, because a Catamine is what they're called, and but they throw out so many courses, and I actually did the Vue and the React one to be able to work with them and then do the tracking. But what I think is important to know for people watching or listening is about for Simmer. What I see with a Catamine is very high level. This is the program. There's little context to business. They're always doing the same kind of tools, the what do you call it, to-do list kind of things, and there's hardly ever any context. And that's, I think, like you said, it's a niche, and it might be a small market, but I think the people who are taking these courses benefit the most from it, because you can't find anything else. Technical marketing is great, but how do you apply that to your, to tag management, to data collection for further down the road? No, it's pretty cool. I thought you guys were a little bit bigger than two, but I think you sometimes work with other authors like Johan, and even with that, the evergreen story, changing user interfaces, it's still pretty impressive. The quality of the courses you put out there. I know we have a hard deadline, so I want to take this moment to thank you for your time. And it's been interesting to hear a little bit angle from where tag management is. Been out of it for a while, but it was good talking to you. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It was fun talking to you as well.
All right, and let's plug it. Well, we need to plug your own podcast, of course.
Oh yes. So actually, there are two, but let's start with the act. No, actually, I had one for a long time, and then that's a bit dormant now. But it's also called the Technical Marketing Handbook, and you can find it on teamsim.com. I had 2 seasons, I think, or maybe just one. I can't remember. It was years ago, but I'm actually thinking of going back to it. Maybe turn it more into like an audiobook format. Around technical marketing topics. But then the active podcast is called the Standard Deviation Podcast, where Juliana Jackson is the host, and I'm just tagging along the ride. So we are active is maybe the wrong word, because we maybe push an episode out maybe once every 2 months now. It's been a very slow year for both of us. So, but it's full of brainless banter and insubordination. And we're actually doing a live show in Hamburg at the Track and Analytics Summit. It's the first and will probably be the last live show that we'll do, but it's fun to give it a test as well to see how silly it gets.
Never say never. I mean, as long as you avoid certain topics, I'm sure your show will not get banned or get stopped. But live shows, the live shows can be pretty fun. So is that going to be on stage, or
it's going to be on stage? So the reason I just generally myself hate live shows. I think they're noisy, and it's difficult to follow along, and they're full of like visual cues that you can't get through just listening to the podcast. So we'll try to do it in a way that doesn't get other people to hate live shows as well.
All right. Leave some room there for me in the future then. But hey, thanks for taking the time, and I'll see you around soon.
See you.